Joining us now from Richmond, Joe Morrissey used to be a House of Delegates member. He ran for mayor of Richmond. He was my candidate. One of the few predictions I've lost. I still haven't really gotten over that. I want him to win bad. We would have moved our operation to Richmond and been the Joe Morrissey Truth Network, because if he was mayor, he would have never gotten a fair shot by any of the other media. I think he would have done an excellent job. But now, well, he's an attorney that has won over 255 jury trials in Central Virginia. He won, at one point, 55 or 52 in a row. That's like Joe DiMaggio numbers, right? Who does that? And he's with us now. Joe, happy Independence Day. Good to have you with us, man.
Good to be with you too, John. If my voice sounds a little bit funny, it's because of all the festivities last night. We were yelling at the fireworks. The kids had a fantastic time, and I think that and being in the pool all day, I lost my voice a little bit. But I'll tell you, the 4th of July is for kids, and all of our kids had a great time yesterday.
So what do you think of Ed Gillespie's plan to make the legal sale of fireworks a reality in Virginia? Is it a game changer?
I don't think it, I was listening to you, John, and I don't see it being a big game changer. Good move. Why not? I was thinking, and why hasn't this been done before? I don't know if it's the game changer that you say it is, but, time will tell. Gillespie certainly put, the Northern camp on notice that, hey, if you think that this gubernatorial campaign is a done deal because of the early polls, you're mistaken. And John, I think this gubernatorial race will be decided within 2 points.
I do also, and of course, my narrative on the Gillespie fireworks thing was tongue-in-cheek, as I'm sure you could have told by it. I think, he needs to really differentiate himself, and I'm not sure getting the M80 vote is going to make the difference. But look, it is a little bit of a differentiator. It was kind of smart to do it before July 4th, but whatever. Hey, Joe, I was excited to have you on. I just want to tell my audience. So Joe and I are chatting Monday just about what our families are doing, and he shares with me the story of a trial he just had. And I don't want to steal, Joe, any of your thunder, but I'm like, hey, Joe, that is such a interesting story. Can you come on Wednesday and tell our audience about it? Because it's kind of like Law and Order on TV. Can you share our audience a story that you told me on Monday, Joe?
Sure. Let me just lay the facts out exactly as they were. We'll call her Mary as the defendant. In November of 2016, Mary, a single mother with no criminal record whatsoever, visits a gun show. She'd heard about them and is just walking through it by herself. She has $10 in her pocket, no intention of buying a gun, and she, as you may know, there's lots of vendors. It's a vast area, lots of vendors selling guns, and one vendor says, "Hey, come on over here. Look at this gun." She says, "Oh, that's nice." And then he says, "Well, listen, fill out these 2 forms." Gives her 2 clipboards, and just to see if you qualify. So she fills them out. One form has 15 boxes, another 3, and the longer one says things like this: "Have you ever been convicted of a felony?" No. "Have you ever been convicted of stalking?" No. "Are you an illegal alien?" No. Are you a U.S. citizen? She answers them all. Then there's this one box, and remember, they only have one check box for it. But this box is a multiple questioned thing. It says, "Have you ever been acquitted by a reason of insanity?" Well, no. "Have you ever been deemed mentally incapacitated?" No. "Have you ever been involuntarily committed to a mental institution?" She goes, "No." I mean, that's a multiple question, but it's only got one box. She says no, and that's it. So the gun shop vendor sends that form, and then she walks away just doing window shopping. The vendor sends it to the state police that are in the patrolling the gun show. And they flag her because 8 years before this, 8 years before, she had a horrible week and day. What happened? At the time, she was 8 months pregnant. She had a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old. Her dad had just suffered a heart attack on Thursday. He died of a brain aneurysm on Saturday. She is beyond stressed. Imagine that. Dad dies on a Saturday after having had a heart attack 2 days before. Kid on the way. Two more toddlers running around. Her doctor had prescribed Zoloft to her. He says, if you have any problems with it, call me.
Right.
This is horrible. I'm feeling great. Anxiety, depression. My dad just died. He said, listen, go to St. Mary's Hospital. And she does. She gets her sister and boyfriend to drive her to St. Mary's Hospital. She checks in into the hospital, and the next day, the doctors gave her medication. But the next day, because of her depression, they have a 5-minute involuntary commitment hearing, which she sleeps through. She's got a court-appointed attorney, and they commit her for 2 days. During those 2 days, her doctor comes in and takes her off Zoloft. She gets 2 days of rest. Boom, she's back to normal. I know that's an artful word, and I mean no disrespect to people that are suffering from mental disease, but normal. And she's been perfect ever since. She works for the federal government, U.S. Postal Office for the last 6 years, and she leaves the hospital completely forgetting that day. And then she checks the box that says, I've never been, involuntary committed to a mental institution, which is, first of all, the truth.
But she never actually tried to buy a firearm.
I'm getting to that exactly. So she's charged with a crime, attempting to buy a firearm. And they take her to court in Henrico Court. Shannon Taylor's the Commonwealth attorney. Mm-hmm. And I said, what are you doing? Tell her office, what are you doing? She had a bad day 8 years ago, and she's just, the forms were thrust at her. She wasn't trying to buy a gun. Here's what happened. That Saturday when she filled out the forms, she never returned. On Sunday, after the state police get involved, the state police officer gets the vendor to call her back and say, hey, come on back. She doesn't come back. She's got no more intention of buying a gun than the man in the moon. I equated it in the closing argument. I said to the jurors, imagine you walking down the boardwalk in Virginia Beach, and they're always trying to sell you timeshares. Right. They thrust a board in your hand. Hey, fill it out. See if you're qualified. Hey, go have a free breakfast on us. I said, and then the person never returned. I said, that's what happened. But in any event, on Sunday, remember Saturday when she filled out the form, she had $10 in her pocket. Never tried to get the gun. And in closing argument, I said to the jury, I said, there's two people that tried to buy a gun, either herself or the vendor. And the Commonwealth attorney doesn't even call in the vendor. And so the jury was out 18 minutes, found her not guilty, and they told one of the lawyers that was second chairing the case for me, he said, and when we did it pro bono for her, John, she needed that help. He said it was disgraceful for the Henrico County Commonwealth Attorney's Office to even prosecute this case. What are you thinking? What were they doing? What was the meaning? And I don't know, but that's just absolutely. I've done this for a long time, John,
right.
30 years, and I can't believe that the prosecuting office, Shannon Taylor's office, would prosecute a case like that. It was disgraceful.
Yes.
I mean, imagine that. I can just imagine a single mother, going through what she went through. I mean, John, we have 3 kids. We've got plenty of means. You know that. We've got lots of means. We've got daycare. We've got a babysitter. But 3 kids can be overwhelming at times.
Yes.
Adds to that dad dies of an aneurysm the same day. Sure, she goes to the hospital and gets straightened out almost immediately. And then to charge her with a crime is beyond the pale. So you and I were talking about that, and I said, sure, I'll share that story with you.
Well, let me just ask you this, Joe. So I look at this when you told me this story, and the first thing I thought of is out-of-control prosecutors, right? So why, with limited resources, why in the world would Shannon Taylor's office even prosecute this case when she didn't buy a gun? She had no intentions of buying a gun. She never went back there, and she filled out a box wrong. Like, when they looked at that, I mean, Shannon Taylor had to sign off on this. She's a Commonwealth attorney. Like, what?
She's the head of the office.
Right, who's an elected official. So Shannon Taylor and her prosecutors look at this. They have limited resources. They got all kinds of stuff going on in Henrico County. Why would they prosecute this?
Two comments. Number one, maybe because she thought she could get a conviction, but justice wasn't being served. And Shannon Taylor, tells one section of the county, the minority community, look how progressive I am, and she's not. And then she tells the other side of the community, oh, look how tough I am on crime. Look what I'm prosecuting. And just prosecuting cases isn't being tough. As a Commonwealth attorney, you've got to make sure that justice is done. And prosecuting a single, African-American mom who has no criminal record whatsoever, putting her in front of a jury is not doing justice. But importantly, the jurors realize it. I don't know if you know this, John, or your audience, but frequently after a case, jurors will walk up to either the prosecutor or the defense attorney, and they'll be very candid. And they did it here. They walked up and said, what was she thinking? We returned a verdict in 18 minutes. We had to go in there, select a juror form, the instructions, vote, box, press the button, and come on out. And they did it in, less than 20 minutes. And they sent a very strong message that we're just not going to tolerate it. And they said this. They said, it's embarrassing that she would do that.
First of all, great job in defending her, and thanks for doing it pro bono. And that's the kind of stuff that Joe Morrissey does. That's why we're such good friends, and I'm such a believer in the service that you provide for people. So thank you for that. And I'm sure Mary has thanked you also. But you just made a statement. You said about Shannon Taylor making this decision, which is scary to people because, nobody wants to get involved when they make a mistake and be, having lawyers and trials and be faced with jail time. But you said maybe she can get a conviction. What did you mean by that?
Okay. If a grand jury returns a true bill or a warrant is issued, you can get a conviction as a prosecutor, but that doesn't mean that the person is guilty or that justice was done. Remember, here's the key between a defense attorney and a prosecutor. A defense attorney is charged ethically with representing the interests of his client. Do the best that you can operating within the law to represent your client. Be aggressive, be zealous, and that's what you do. Your primary interest is, your number one interest is the client. The prosecutor's number one interest is not the prosecutor's office getting a conviction. Their number one obligation is to seek justice. And you've got to sit back and say, wait a second, is this person seeking justice? Okay? I mean, am I seeking justice by going after this person? And that's what I meant. Sometimes you might be able to say, yeah, I can get a conviction, although in that particular case, not going to happen with me.
Right, so you can get a conviction as a Commonwealth's attorney, and when you run for re-election, you can say you got so many convictions. But Joe, you're in a unique position because you were a Commonwealth's attorney, you were a prosecutor, and if this case came across your desk, it sounds like you would not have gone forward with it when you were in that position.
And listen, I've got a lot of prosecutor friends throughout Central Virginia.
Right.
I talk to them a lot, and they said the same thing. But listen, I like doing this. I like sharing these stories with you. But and every maybe once every few years, you've got a case where you just say, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." I've got another one. I'm not going to discuss it today, but I've got another one coming up in Henrico County, and I got to share it with you. It hasn't come up for trial yet, but I'll tell you, I'll share with what's going on, and it's one of the things that are going to make people really sit up and take notice and say, "Are you serious?" Last week, I had a couple in from Australia, and so I had about 10 or 12 people over for a cookout, and I said, "Listen, guys, here are the facts. Tell me what you think." And John, the people just couldn't believe it. I want to save, though, that story for another day, but the point being is that prosecutors have an obligation to seek justice, not to get a conviction. Shannon Taylor, the Como attorney in Henrico, didn't do that. And this is not Joe, the defense attorney, being critical of law enforcement. I mean, we've got some great local prosecutors that Gray Collins will soon be the Como attorney down in Colonial Heights, great prosecutor in Central Virginia. But we got Mike Wade, a very progressive Republican sheriff in Henrico. Mm-hmm. Great, does a fantastic job.
Great guy, yeah.
But you've got to be held accountable. And for everybody that heard the story about Mary, realize that the prosecutor did not seek justice. Shannon Taylor sought a conviction to feather her nest so she can go out into the public and say, "Look what I've done," but it was wrong. And I've got another one, but I want to hold that off, and we'll come back and we'll talk about that at another time.
All right, so we'll come back on that next week. I've got you for a couple more minutes, and I know you got to take off, but give us your sense here of the governor's race. You said that you thought it was going to be close. Go ahead.
I think we maybe talked a couple of weeks ago, and I'll tell you this, zero has changed since then. Politicians they are not going to gain really any traction during these festivities of July and then the dog days of August, because everybody knows people want to get that vacation in August and also get the kids ready for school. But here's what happens in the summertime. Mm-hmm. You prepare to win.
Right.
That's where the heavy lifting is done. One of the favorite expressions that I like, I used to date a girl. She played professional tennis, and I asked her dad, who was a coach, what's the difference between the top 100 men players in the world? And he said, talent-wise, Joe, very, very little difference. Here's the thing. Everybody wants to be a champion. Not everybody wants to prepare to be a champion. So in the summer months, that's when the campaigns are preparing to be champions on Election Day. That's where the money is raised, policies, are being grinded out. A staff of get out the vote seekers is being formulated and put together. That's where you win. Okay, and I have no reason to believe that both campaigns aren't doing just that right now. But as far as my take, I think we're going to see another poll sometime during the middle of the summer. The race will have tightened up considerably, and I said I think it'll be a 2-point race either way in November.
Joe, I think the same thing. We're on the same page there. I know we're out of time. I want to thank Joe for being with us today. Joe, we're going to look forward to your stories every week. I can't wait for your next one. I appreciate it. I know you've got to, meander through what you're able to share with the attorney-client privilege and all that, but I really appreciate it. Hey, if you need a lawyer and you got somebody in your family or a friend or something that might need something, might be in a tough spot, you want to give Joe a call. He's the man. He's the best. I wouldn't go to anybody else. Go to attorneyjoemorrissey.com, attorneyjoemorrissey.com, or give them a call, 804-554-5885, 804-554-5885. Tell them John sent you, attorneyjoemorrissey.com. Joe, thanks for being with us, man.
You bet, John. My best to Ann. See you soon.
We will see you soon.